Good morning, Mind Elevation Nation. This is Desmond Wood signing on. In the last episode, to recap, we talked about how, contrary to the notion that consciousness is disembodied, consciousness, in the sense of the self/ego, the phenomenological aspects of consciousness that healthy human beings dwell in on a daily basis, even in REM sleep, dream states, and so on, is faithfully entailed by neural activity that is highly interactive and widely distributed throughout the brain, hence global functioning of consciousness throughout many different regions in the brain that are integrated to underlie and correlate with a given percept. There's nothing about consciousness that can't be correlated with neural activity, particularly within neurons that project to and receive input from cortical regions, the thalamus, and the claustrum. So in this episode, you'll see more of our conversation, and towards the end, we get a little philosophical, and in future episodes, you will see consciousness being elucidated via experiences attained through meditative techniques and also a scientific breakdown. Enjoy. What we know about consciousness is that it is associated with complex, adaptive biological networks. It does not require behavior, nor emotions, nor language, nor self-consciousness. It does not require a long-term memory, nor selective attention, and it can occur in one cerebral hemisphere. Destruction of localized brain regions interferes with specific content of consciousness. Cutting the corpus callosum, which creates a split brain patient, creates a type of double antagonistic consciousness. There's a famous story of a patient, split brain patient, that went to the store, grabbed items with the left hand, put it in the cart, whilst the right hand simultaneously put it back, or subsequently put the items back. All the while he's unconscious of what's going on. It wasn't intentional. See, I want this ice cream. Right hand, left hemisphere.
Because it was a case of the right hand not knowing what the left hand did.
Exactly. So that's an example of it can occur in one hemisphere, one cerebral hemisphere.
Right.
So that's very intriguing.
Yes.
So we see the consciousness is like a computer, yet it's not really like a computer. That's the paradox.
Right.
Because a computer is predicated upon a binary code system, right? You have unambiguous binary codes coming into a system, translated into the code and all of that. For those who do coding, they know that. I don't know that. That's not my realm, but in a nutshell, that's what's going on. But the brain is taking in, translating ambiguous signals, a diffuse pattern. There's no necessary binary code in nature, right? No. You have sounds from various insects. You have light in various forms. You have different wavelengths bombarding the brain.
And the brain integrates it all into one.
Yes.
Via consciousness.
Via consciousness.
It integrates it all into one unitary scene.
Yes, a unitary scene.
That's powerful.
Very
That's
powerful.
amazing. I mean, you got to think when you see a star, that means that the star, the information of the star has come into your eyes. Yes. And your eye can see it. That means that your brain is cognizing it. That means that there's been a contact and a transmission from the information from that star to your brain. Yes. Just as the information from all objects in nature and in the environment around us, not just the sounds and noises that we hear and the wind blowing, but everything is coming in contact with our brains. Yes. They say the brain receives about 400 billion bits of information per second. And out of that, we make our universe out of only 2,000 to 3,000 bits of information. So there's a lot of information processing and integration going on that doesn't become cognizable in our conscious experience, in our ordinary experience in life. And this is always which is always. Then we come to the way in which mystics have always dealt with consciousness throughout time, we see that they've always experimented with the limitations of consciousness. And so the consciousness of can not only my awareness just make a universal reality out of the 2,000-3,000 bits of information that's right here in front of me, or that I'm right here able to be cognized and see in front of me, but through certain practices, maybe I can expand, at least even momentarily, the limitations of my consciousness, so that I can be aware of other things as well.
Yes, via what is known as attention.
Via
Christoph Koch and Francis Crick talk about the fact that attention enriches consciousness. That's something to note. Attention enriches consciousness.
Right.
So, okay, I'm looking at the TV. Muhammad is to the left of me, which is considered the periphery. But when I actually focus on Muhammad, I don't even have to look at bro Muhammad. If I simply become more aware of Muhammad to my left, then he becomes more vivid. Then I turn towards Muhammad and place attention on Muhammad. Of course, there's a certain part of the brain that's 30 or so visual centers in the brain. You don't see with your eye. Right. A lot of people don't realize that.
Right.
You don't actually
never see nothing.
Never see anything with the eye. It all takes place in different parts of the brain, and there are more primal visual centers in the brain and more neural neocortex equipment, so to speak, that deal with a given person.
So it seems that these are different parts of the brain actually function as like mechanisms for consciousness.
Yes, that's why I say it is like a computer.
Yeah,
but it is not a computer. It is a mistake to say it is a computer. But that's once again, we're dealing with paradoxes.
Right.
And a paradox is also a way to gauge your intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to deal with paradoxes because by its very nature, it's true and untrue at the same time. It's like, how can something be true and not true simultaneously?
At the same time.
It's like, it's a computer, but it's not a computer. How so?
Well, that demands a higher order of consciousness in order to ascertain that.
Yes,
understand
that paradox.
Yeah, because that's very, paradoxical.
Yes, or rather, we say the brain is like a computer because human beings have created computers and they saw analogous functionality.
Yeah, but the key word is like.
Like.
The key word is like. It's not an exact one.
Not is. Right.
Exactly. And
consciousness is like a computer, not consciousness is
the brain is like a computer.
The brain is like a computer.
I would say the consciousness is more...
Remember the other day we were going into some thought experiments. We talked about the tree and looking at the tree, and we said the tree is.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped. I said, the tree is, and I left it at that. It simply is.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have the complex. Someone can say the tree is aware in the sense that it's aware of photons of light.
Right. Or it is
taking in water, H2O.
Right.
Photosynthesis.
And reacting to
extracting carbon from the environment, CO2.
And it reacts to harmful stimulants in its environment
as
well. And it's been noted by scientists that even plants communicate between each other. There've been experiments that plants do. That there was 2 sets of trees in Africa, and I think it was in South Africa. It was on Discovery Channel or National Geographic, one of those type of channels.
I see.
And they said that one set of trees was actually sending a chemical transmission to the other set of trees.
Wow.
And that these trees were communicating through some type of chemical process, just like insects. Ants, they have a chemical language in which they communicate with each other.
So this fulfills one of the fundamental properties of consciousness, which is mere awareness. Just simple awareness.
Mere awareness and the ability to react and respond to the environment.
Yes.
And the ability to communicate and exchange information between the environment. Language is nothing but a more pronounced way of communication.
Yes.
Versus chemical communication that insects and some plants display according to science. You also have the fact that when you notice here, what you notice about consciousness here is that consciousness is not only unitary, but consciousness is as you said, adaptive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like water takes on the color of its own cup, takes on the color of the cup that it enters into. And this is the way that consciousness is. It takes on, it expresses itself in accord to the limitations of the capacity of the given being.
Yes, the medium. We were talking about the medium yesterday.
Exactly. And so the medium of a tree is different than the medium of an ant. Yes. The medium of an ant is different in complexity than the medium of a rhesus monkey or a chimpanzee.
Or the medium of Muhammad's brain and nervous system.
Or the medium of
what's known as, which will go into higher order consciousness. We haven't gotten into that yet. Because there's so much to flesh out with primary consciousness. It'll be a while before we get into the higher order of consciousness. But we see it as hierarchical in a sense. Right. You have the mere simple awareness of a tree or plant merely being in existence.
Right.
Merely being there.
Right.
Then a bee and its awareness, its brain and nervous system, and as a different type of medium. If we look at consciousness as a field, right, or in a sense,
that's interesting.
That sounds like your language. I've known you too many years. You're rubbing off on me now.
Consciousness as a field. I think I used to say that a long time ago.
This is speculative, and it's good to talk about this because the point here in our videos and so on is we're learning. We're learning together. We don't know for certain what it is exactly yet.
No,
Stuart Hameroff.
We only know parts of it.
Right. Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist. He's on YouTube. You can look him up. It's pretty popular. He has a notion of consciousness, and he takes it to the level of the quantum world, the quanta. He talks about microtubules, which are the channels by which you have what's known as a gap junction, neuron to neuron communication.
Right.
In the old model, we knew about dendrites and axons, right? Mm-hmm. Connecting in various meshwork ways.
Right.
To more each other.
Subtle processes.
But a neuron can communicate with a neuron directly via gap junction at a quantum speed through a microtubule.
Wow.
And in that microtubule, DNA and protein and neurotransmitters are exchanged at a rapid speed. So they were saying that, postulating that, for example, in certain ancestors, this is important to have that rapid. For example, in the visual system, you see the benefit of a neuron quick gap junction response.
Right.
Quick stimulus response. Something's coming, pray.
Right.
Respond right away. Versus a more slower neuron to neuron connection via axon or dendrite, which is chemical, electrical, chemical.
Wow.
Right.
So you see, you
start getting too technical.
Even a precursor to development of the brain and nervous system.
Yes, we see that
via neural networks. You see
exactly
immediate communication, direct. Yes, communication.
Different examples of types of neuronal communication.
Right.
And this wasn't known until after the 1970s during what's known as the Quiet Revolution. With better spectroscopy, better microscopes, better technology, they said, hey, wait a minute. Here's a neuron communicating to a neuron bereft of an axon or a dendrite.
Right.
There's direct neuronal communication, this rapid.
Kind of like Bluetooth technology going on between cells.
Aha. So if we look at consciousness as a field, then of course the medium would determine the quality of consciousness.
Right.
Right?
Right. Consciousness in its expression would be limited to the medium.
Yes.
Just as if, for example, we all have an outlet of the wall, and it's electricity. Consciousness is like electricity, and you put an LG TV in it, and with Wi-Fi and high definition technology,
smart TV,
and what do you have? You got an amazing piece of technology.
Yes.
I put in my old black and white 2-knob. What are you going to have? So the electricity in its expression, the electricity is infinite in its capacity, in its potential to give life and vivification to things, or at least to make them function mechanically, but it's dependent upon the medium.
And is that not part of the fundamental properties of consciousness?
Yes.
It does not exhaust a given thing with which it deals.
Exactly.
Inexhaustible.
Exactly. And so with the human being, consciousness takes on a different form where it then has the capacity because of the complexity of the human brain and the human total organism. The complexity of the human brain and the human organism gives consciousness a medium whereby which it can even where it can explore its infinite possibilities, and the brain is pretty much telling us to its billions and billions of neuronal connections and other types of connections. There's so many things taking place in the brain all at once. which gives us an idea of the infinite nature of its capacity. I mean, if we look at mathematically, imagine your DNA code. The human DNA code was the number of neuronal connections in the brain. Now, what is the number of probability of them numbers lining themselves up in different sequences? Of those different connections reconnecting in different
possible
ways?
combinatorial possibilities.
What is the number of possible connections possible? They can change. Each one could change. And so it's limitless in its
near
capacity.
infinite,
Limitless, near infinite. We can't see an end to
from
the
a practical
potential
point of view, limitless.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I can't quote
We
pi.
can't-
from
yeah,
memory.
I can't calculate that.
No.
You know, maybe
So
2
we'll
plus 2
say
equals
near
4.
infinite, hence limitless.
Exactly.
So
And so, which means that consciousness in the human brain has different levels of expressing itself, and consciousness in the human brain cannot exhaust itself in its expression.
So I'd like to end this episode quoting from one of my favorite books written by a powerful scientist and physician named Vilayanur Ramachandran from South India, A Brief Tour of Human Consciousness. He says, quote, "The human brain, it has been said, is the most complexly organized structure in the universe. And to appreciate this, you just have to look at some numbers.
Yes.
The brain is made up of 100 billion nerve cells or neurons, which form the basic structural and functional units of the nervous system. Each neuron makes something like 1,000 to 10,000 contacts with other neurons, and these points of contact are called synapses. It is here that exchange of information occurs. Based on this information, it has been calculated that the number of possible permutations and combinations of brain activity, in other words, the numbers of brain states, exceeds the number of elementary particles in the known universe, bro."
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That's remarkable. Here you have, on top of our heads, possibly the most complicated structure in the universe itself. More complex than the sun even.
Wow.
And here you have one neuron that has the capacity from 1,000 to 10,000 neural connections, which are synapses.
Yes.
That's infinite. You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said years ago that one neuron is infinite in its potential. And I mean, if the numbers don't lie. I mean, anytime you have a mechanism with over 100 billion cells that has and those cells has 1,000 to 10,000 possible connections. Here you have a structure in its very nature that's infinite. That's
limitless.
That's limitless. A structure, the human brain, that is able to function as a perfect medium for consciousness.
I'm not a mathematician.
To be conscious of itself.
I'm not a mathematician, but that is, 100 trillion possible combinations?
Over 100
Over
trillion.
100 trillion possible permutations and combinations.
That's insane. That's insane. That's more than the number of stars in the universe, possibly.
That's what sometimes.
And that's in your brain. And that's on top of your head. That's amazing. So we should never look at ourselves as finite creatures, not when we have an infinite structure on top of our heads. An infinite structure that has the capacity to express the limitless nature of consciousness.
Yes, indeed. So what does that say about consciousness? We know that it is faithfully correlated, entailed by what's known as the NCC, neurocorrelates of consciousness. We know this because consciousness can be tweaked and even cut off, so to speak, when you manipulate the region that's known as the claustrum, which we'll go into in another
It can be
episode.
Well, you deal with the way that the consciousness works through your machine. For example,
that medium of consciousness.
That medium,
at least, so
exactly. For example, if I remove a certain mechanism out of your television as it's hooked up to the wall, then that's going to express. You're going to have a different vision of what's going on across the
Yes,
screen. It
for
might
example.
be a blue screen or a red screen or even an all black screen based off of which mechanism I did. Or I could I remove a mechanism and there's no audio. Or if I
consciousness itself, limitless.
and consciousness, but the consciousness itself is limitless. It's just dependent upon the medium.
So we shouldn't be surprised
when
when someone who's mastered, well, I won't say even mastered, though many have, but for sake of not getting into the ego, we'll say someone who has practiced the art of meditation for decades will experience consciousness and will have tasted a level of consciousness that seems alien, foreign to the average person.
Right.
You'll look at this individual and say, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Are you insane?
Well, they have a different quality of consciousness
Yes.
based off the neural connections and whichever.
Yes, and our brain, that medium can change.
Yes.
It's malleable. It's plastic.
Yeah.
Neuroplasticity.
Right.
It's that popular
but the
phrase these
consciousness
days.
remains unitary and always the same.
Exactly.
And fundamentally, you remain the same.
Yes.
As a self-identity. You know, even though the state in which the you is expressing itself may be different.
Yes.
And those who have, other ideas that's associated with that.
So there is an aspect of yourself, your core, which is limitless.
Infinite, and potential.
And potential.
But it's dependent upon the mechanisms of our brain and nervous system.
And that mechanism, thank goodness, we can tweak.
We can tweak.
We can modify.
Through. We can enhance its potential.
Yes.
Einstein said something like we only use about 5% of our brain.
Yes,
capacity.
that's popular, but we actually use more than that. But I get the idea.
Well,
a lot of people take that literally. We actually use more than that.
Well, yeah, in terms of the brain structure, it's distributed all over.
Basically, like bandwidth, it can be bottlenecked.
Yes. Or as the example I gave on the prior video, we have 400 billion bits of information coming in contact with us at any given second, according to science. But we make our reality only 2,000 to 3,000 bits
of that information,
and that's because of the way the mechanisms that the consciousness is acting through those mediums have to be enhanced.
Yes.
Here you have Wi-Fi. You got 4G technology streaming across the airways, but you're still utilizing a 2G brain structure.
That's a good way.
And so therefore we need to upgrade the technology, upgrade the brains. And you will only upgrade the brains through using your brains, through developing all your faculties simultaneously.
Yes.
And so when you develop all your faculties simultaneously, not just your intellect, but also your emotional life as well, because your emotional life is also part of your nervous system. Yes, just as your instinctive moving life is also a part of your nervous system as well. And so therefore you have to develop all those different faculties within you in order for consciousness to have a perfect medium to express itself through. And that's when you begin to taste the more infinite natures of consciousness. That's when you begin, like people who meditate, that's when you begin to taste, that's when orders of information that are not available to the average person becomes available to you. Yes. Your reality changes.
Yes,
the greenness of the leaves is just not green. They become more vivid. Life becomes more real, and you become more part and parcel of all of nature.
Yes. And to make this practical, how does one go about modifying their medium, their brain? Medium mechanism. There's neurons that fire together, wire together.
The first thing to do is change our diet. This is why in all esoteric schools and schools of development, they start with changing a person's diet.
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat, but the brain requires certain nourishment. Just as other parts of our body require certain nourishment. And so if you're feeding the brain the right foods, that's the proper thing. If you eat a lot of red meat, a lot of pork and beef and things of that nature, or a lot of sugary foods and sugary snacks, you're limiting the power of your brain power, because all the blood is going to digesting this food, and all the sugar is going into basically clogging up your bloodstream. And so therefore you're having all these different factors limiting the power of your brains. So we start with the diet. The next thing we do is that we work on developing the individual parts of ourselves. For example, some people don't like to work out, but actually exercise is healthy for your brain. People that exercise fundamentally have better functioning brains.
Yes, memory consolidation, memory recall is improved.
There's studies to that. They experience less depression,
workout routines,
and things like that. So it's exercises. So these are just basic fundamental things that you can do to change your brain the way your brain works automatically.
Yes.
You start eating vegan every day, and you meditate with that an hour, 30 minutes each day, you're going to have a different reality perception than the average person. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
At least it's going to be
same
augmented.
scenario, different conscious reality.
Exactly. It's going to be augmented.
Yes,
versus,
augmented.
Yes, versus the average state that you was once in, or the average state in which you find most other human beings existing in. Another thing, so we start with the diet, and then we do, well, like I said, we start with the physical body. You work on exercise.
Right.
And then, well, you have a sexual nature. You want to develop your brain. Well, a lot of our matter that makes up sperm in males comes from, they say some of that comes from brain matter, spinal fluid, or something of that nature. I don't know. But it takes blood from the body in order to, raise that member. And so some hypersexuality could be actually depleting for some people's brains. Maybe not other people. It's all dependent on your energy. Now, so therefore, you want to be controlled and moderate and balanced in your sexual expression, because all that's connected to how your brain and your brain power. Go abstinent for a year, and I bet you'll be more smarter. Or how many people are able to read a 300-page book after just having sex? Most people have sex and they're ready to go to sleep.
Not me.
And so
you I have energy. Right.
I'm energized. I said it's all conditioned upon the. I said most people.
Though generally it's true. Though generally most people get relaxed.
Yeah.
The nervous system is relaxed.
And there's other factors that weigh in there as well. Some people are more energy giving. Some are more vampiristic, energy taking, energy depleting. And so, but you still want to be moderate and balanced there and find your way in there, because you want to develop your brain. Emotionally. Most people are emotionally out of whack. Well, if you're emotionally out of whack, you're going to cause yourself brain damage. It's been studies done that indicate that negative emotions and harboring negative thoughts and resentment, things like that, damages your brain, actually. It inhibits certain neural connections. It inhibits neurochemical exchange, neurotransmitter exchange in the brain and nervous system, and things like that. So our thoughts and our emotions affect not only our psychology, but affects the biology of our brains and the biology of our whole organism. Actually, it affects our whole physiology.
And a reciprocal feedback loop.
Exactly. And then you want to develop yourself emotionally. How do you develop yourself emotionally? Through spending time in nature, through learning how to meditate, through forms of prayer,
through music,
through ritual, through not just any music, but certain vibrant, inspirational, and upbeat music that raises your spirits. It can be an R&B singer, but it just raises your spirits up. It makes you feel better inside. These are all ways in which to feed oneself properly emotionally. And then you got to develop yourself intellectually. Most people don't want to develop themselves intellectually. Many people in America don't want to read a serious book. Or if we read a serious book, we have to be getting a grade or certificate or getting paid for it at the end of the day.
Yes. To this day, you can still hide $1,000 in a book and leave it in the middle of anywhere in a mall.
Right.
For the most part. And people look, the neurobiology of consciousness.
No, just leave it there. A dictionary. In fact, leave it in a dictionary. Leave it in a big dictionary. It's just going to be there. You left $1 million in the dictionary. Yes. And they ain't gonna mess with it.
No.
And so, so we have to develop ourselves intellectually. And so, and when we develop all these different aspects of our brain and nervous system, we actually upgrade the technology. And when we upgrade the technology, then you have a better medium for consciousness to express itself.
Yes. Going back to that 100 trillion possible permutations and combinations dealing with information.
Exactly. And if we take Einstein's idea, even though it's not exactly accurate, it might be true that out of those 100 trillion possible connections, we're only isolating ourselves to 5% of them.
Yes, we have to seriously look into that.
Now that's possible. We have all.
How much more can you tap into?
How much more can you tap into? Now you sounded like a mystic.
Mm-hmm.
Back we can end it there.
Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. This is Desmond Wood signing off. Mind Elevation Nation.